hall of the palace. And in the hall, we have two signs. I want to refer this because this is something amazing done in this site. Doesn't happen in many sites. There are two designs of the information signs. The Herodioun design and the Jewish revolt against the Roman design. The moment you look at a sign in Herodioun and you can see the frame and the color, you know what period we're talking about. This is an amazing idea and a very simple one to say the truth. Every period receives color and its design, and then the moment I look at the sign, I know what time it's talking about, instead of being in need of reading the information and noticing a little detail. So that's what they did. We're starting with the left-hand side, the Herodioun decoration. And what are we inside? We are inside a triclinus or a triclinium. Tri is reach, kline. When you recline, you're on top of a couch or a bed. 3 couch or 3 bed room. This is not a sleeping room. This is a conference and meeting hall. So in reality, what was in here before the columns messed up and what you're sitting on was even installed, there were 3 big beds or couches forming open shape towards the door. And what we actually have here is a fancy hall. Who will be lying down in the central couch? The most important person here. If it is the owner of the house in a private home, no problem. But if he has a guest that's more important than him, he will move aside. And the guest will sit in the middle. What side will the owner go to? Right. To the right. Which means the moment I look at this room and I see the person in the middle, I know he's the most important person. To his right,
your left.
Second best.
to his right is second.
Second best.
To his left is the next. To the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left. Doesn't matter how many people are here. Could be 55. Okay? The most important one will be in the middle. That's actually the design of how they live in the Roman world. In every important villa, important palace in the Roman world, you will have such a room for gatherings, for meals, to show how wealthy and important you are as well. But wait a minute. So all these lying down. Where's the food? Where's the table?
Everyone gets a little table.
Okay, there are no tables.
A la carte service.
There are no big tables like we know today. Everyone receives his private table. So the owner of the house, doesn't matter if he's in the middle or moved aside, will do something like this. And the small army of servants will come out through the side door from the drum, from the services area, each and every one carrying a small wooden table. One for you, and one for you, and one for you, and one for each and every one. What will you find on the small table? 2 main things. The first course, known in good Italian as antepasti, what comes before the pasta, right?
And the wine.
The vegetables, hors d'oeuvres, and a cup of wine.
Wine.
After a short while, our servants come, take the table, and return with the main course. The main course will come with something to eat, usually meat, and a cup of wine. And then they go out and bring dessert with a cup of wine. You get the idea? Sounds good? Okay. What happened? Oh no. Okay, shake it down.
Is this
So,
where the setup of today's table started?
well, in those days there were private tables. Later on into the Middle Ages, people moved into heavy wooden central tables that people gathered.
But I mean,
next to.
like the head of the table and the right. And so
Okay, the
this is
head of
where
the table comes more from the medieval period when there's a long, massive wooden table, and whoever sits at the head here is the most important person. Doesn't matter if it's right or left. And on the other side, and if there's no one on the way, then there's this long table with only 2 people, right? Because no one's going to sit in the middle, showing he's not important. That's how, in cartoons and movies, you see it a lot. But there are only 2 people, but they're sitting so distant, they need to shout to hear each other. Here it's a little bit different culture, but that will evolve over there. So, who enjoys this lifestyle with the amount of food, with the wine? These are the free, the wealthy, of course, royalty, but also the wealthy people. Now, Herod is a king. So this will be one of his rooms where he invites the visitors to enjoy whatever luxuries he can show. And this is a good idea to do it in the middle of the desert, because that might impress them. Not bad, right? Already they went into the bathhouse, they move over here, they might want to go back to the bathhouse in half an hour because it's so hot. But we understand that these are the two main parts of the palace. There are a few sleeping bedrooms here and inside the tower. Inside it. By the way, it's cool. It's a round room, so you can't lose anything in the corner. But that's how they actually had just a few rooms for visitors and two main bodies of gatherings, social sites, and so on. This and the bathhouse. But this was actually a way of being a free and wealthy person. Now I'm going to skip to the Jewish tradition from those days. And the first night of Passover, that in part of the Gospels is also known as the Last Supper, but I won't go deep into it because we will have classes in Christianity in about a month and a half. But what we actually have here is a gathering, first night of Passover, when everyone lies down to drink their wine, 4 cups. How many did I say before? Hors d'oeuvres, main course, and dessert. 4 cups. What does that actually say? I'm much better. I'm much freer. I'm much wealthier, right? I'm wasting a lot of wine. But they're actually saying that we sit together, or actually lie down as free people did, lying on their left-hand side. Why on the left? Because I eat with my right. If I'm leaning on my right, I can't really do something. I'm sorry, all the lefties, I'm really, really sorry. In antiquity, they didn't think of lefties an important group. I have 2 sons that are lefties. That's how it is. I'm sorry. So on your left-hand side, you lie down, eat with your right. And this tradition of the first night of Passover has a few things from those days. One, that everyone is served. There's a custom that you do not pour your own cup of wine. Someone serves you, which means we are all royalty. We are all free people. Unlike reality that most of the time is suppressed by the emperor and by his taxes. So one night a year you feel a free person. How do you do that? You lie down on a couch. You enjoy the luxury of a good meal. It takes a long, long time, this meal. But the idea is actually to talk about something. Because also in the Roman world, when they lie down and receive the first course and the second, they talk. Talk about politics, they talk about culture, they talk about the play they watched yesterday, they talk. So there's a debate happening. Same thing happening on the first night of Passover, when in the Jewish tradition they actually tell the story of the Exodus, which in the Jewish tradition is the moment, the birth of the Jewish people, or the Israelite people as I should say, leaving Egypt and becoming free people. So that's what happens in such a room. And what the rabbis actually did is they copied the Roman style of free, wealthy people and allowed everyone to be free and wealthy at least once a year. Because all the rest of the year, we're not there. So that's the structure they will use, and that's how people will settle in.
So they were separating the beds by columns to see each other, to talk with each other.
There were columns at the side of the room.
With no walls, right? To see each other.
No, with no walls in between them. If you look at the left-hand side reconstruction, you can see the columns are towards the edge of the room, and the whole center is open for those couches. So that's what Herod does here. Gatherings, wealthy gatherings, friends, visitors, impressing them hopefully. But then when I skip 70 years to year 66 Common Era, when the Jewish revolt against the Romans begins, what happens? The same triclinium or triclinus becomes a different room. They change the structure of the room. Where the columns stood, they put the benches. That did not exist before. If you look carefully at the benches, you'll notice the design of them is very rough, not very organized stones that are actually installed here. The benches make more people have enough room to sit here. They move the columns in and actually block their view a little bit. Why do they do this? They make what we call a synagogue. What is a synagogue?
The people were used to sit together and talk.
Okay, syn in Greek is together or identical. Gogos is where the people go, which means it's where the people gather together. It's a gathering home. In Hebrew, Beit Knesset, house of gathering. So they actually built a synagogue. But this synagogue was built when the temple in Jerusalem still exists. By the way, where's Jerusalem compared to us? We saw it. It's in that direction. Right? As you can see, this building is not pointing towards Jerusalem at all. Second Temple period synagogues, and we know quite a few, are not facing Jerusalem, which means prayer isn't the important thing taking place here. Apparently other things, the community gathering, maybe reading the Holy Scriptures in front of the people. That means that during the Jewish revolt against the Romans, from year 66 here till 71, rebels take over this place from the Roman government and garrison, convert the main hall as their gathering home, and this will be where they actually decide the communal decisions and teach each other the Holy Scriptures when it is the time to do that as well. They take the exact same room and redesign it. And that's what you can see on the right. If you look carefully, now compare the two, you'll notice how the columns moved in and how the benches were added all around. What you might ask me is, where's the Holy Ark of the synagogue? The answer is, I don't know if there was one. Why am I saying that? Because usually today in synagogues there's the direction of prayer, and on that side you'll have a Holy Ark where the Torah scrolls, the Holy Scripture scrolls are located. Here we don't have a direction, and therefore, at least in most of the synagogues we know from the Second Temple period, there is no Holy Ark in the room.
But did they have a place where to put the scripture?
Apparently they had a place in at least one of the synagogues that the area nearby was also understood. They found a side room, actually in two that I can think of, a side room that apparently that's where it was held and brought into the main hall when it needed.
Like a small library?
A library is a big word, but a small chamber nearby.
But Warren, how come that the prayer is the main thing?
Ooh, that's the interesting thing. How come the prayer isn't the main thing? So I'll give a very quick answer, but it's, of course there's a lot more to say. We don't know how much of the prayer was written in the Second Temple period. I'm not saying nothing was written, but apparently most of it was only edited after. Actually, part of the prayer was edited to replace the sacrifices that were offered daily at the temple. As long as the temple still exists and there are daily sacrifices, then the prayer isn't the main thing to do. Yes?
So today a lot of the ark